Good evening, one and all. Welcome along. It is season 5, episode number 4 of the UK Cowboys podcast. Myself and Paul for a little cozy fireside tonight. The Godfather hopes to be along shortly. Paul, how are things?
Yeah, not too bad. Happy that we got a win and happy that we had no interceptions. We had basically our defense was on fire once again. A lot of good things to be excited about.
Yeah, and as always, the comments are coming straight in. So Lebarski is giving us a big let's go. And DJ Dog with a sacks and turnovers equals 7 points. Points given up equals 10. Hashtags Doomsday Defense.
Yep, and that's it.
And Stevie Lad coming in with Cowboys own New York.
That's a bit of an understatement.
Absolutely it is. And folks, don't forget to get your comments, get your thoughts, get your opinions into us here. We will pull them up as we go. If we don't pull your comment up immediately, it's because we have something planned later on to bring it, and we'll try and bring it in then. But Paul, give us your initial thoughts on the game on Sunday.
I think we played a very conservative, complementary football again from the week before, where we were playing to our strengths. Obviously, we threw the ball a lot more, which a lot of people were criticizing the week before. I think those questions have been answered, and it didn't have to be big, massive plays in that, but the big difference was that was consistently moving the ball up to the red zone and stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a wee bit of frustration with the red zone from there, and we kind of relied more on Brandon Aubrey at the time. But other than that, there's nothing really much we could really be disappointed about the performance, I think.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it there, and it was not that it was a point of contention amongst us in our own admin chat, but we kind of touched on it on Sunday night, kind of saying, is the red zone a little bit of a concern? There was two schools of thoughts in that, you need to be executing against better teams, and the other school of thought was kind of, we need to control the clock. This is a very good New York Jets team, right? They're missing Aaron Rodgers, but this team beat a Super Bowl contender in the Buffalo Bills last Monday night.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, and this is for the people that have been criticizing Dallas, saying, "Oh, you've only beat Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson." I'm like, well, one, the Giants were in the playoffs last year. This year, and so the Jets have a very, very talented defense, right? These are the guys that forced the so-called one of the best QBs in the league, Josh Allen, made them look like nothing. Like Josh Allen now has 3 interceptions for the year.
Yeah,
already, and Dak is still at 0. So the fact that that's a statistic in itself, and the fact that we've managed to and not just that. Sauce Gardner, CD Lamb, what was it, 143? Yeah,
143 yards.
Yep, 13 yards average for 11 targets. Right? And he's pretty much up against Sauce Gardner all evening. That to me shows you how good our offense was against a top defense.
Yeah.
But going back to the red zone, I think where the red zone defense is pretty much more the Jets' strongest point, and yet we still managed to still put points by field goals, but even still though, but moving the chains up, down the field, we were the better team. We were just a better team overall. It didn't matter if it was Aaron Rodgers or Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson did propose a threat in terms of what I mentioned last week is he has the ability what Daniel Jones has, which is escaping the pocket and rushing up the yards. So, and that's what he did. He got 36 rushing yards. So, so we did manage, and that actually counted the most out of that rushing team because their total was 64 yards. Bryce Hall was only had 9 yards. Michael Carter 8 yards. Dalvin Cook 7 yards, and someone called Ashton Davis 4 yards. Zach Wilson accumulated more than 50% of those total rushing yards.
Yeah. And the thing about those Zach Wilson attempts, they were all pretty much at the end of the first half when the Cowboys were dropping off to ensure that nothing was going over the top after that Garrett Wilson touchdown.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it would have been nice to get another shutout, but at the same time, we were going up against a much better team than the week before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's again, I can't think any massive negatives. I thought the offensive line looked good.
Yeah.
When TJ Bass came in, I thought he looked good. Chuma Adura looked phenomenal once again. He made a brilliant. I can't remember. I think it was like halfway down the field. He sealed the double team block with Tyron Smith and managed to move up to the secondary to allow Tony Pollard to gain those extra 5 yards. Just those three small things make a massive difference. So I think Odoga looked phenomenal in that game while he was in there. So, but yeah, again, I don't want to get way too ahead of myself and stuff. I want to try and think about the next game forward. Like it's like the Drake Brad Shamos says, take one game at a time. We don't want, like, I know like Jamie mentioned it, and I hope Jamie hasn't jinxed us, but he mentioned Super Bowl already. I'm like, let's just calm down. It is only week 2. Like finally, the analysts are actually starting to kind of say, "Oh yeah, they're kind of legit as well."
Yeah.
So I'm just like, we're up against the Arizona Cardinals this week coming up, which is a game that we should be expecting to win. But after what they did to the New York Giants, it would not surprise me if they're going to tank because what was it? They were 28
nil.
28 now, and they lost the game.
21-0, and then I think 28-7 or something like that.
Yeah, even still, though, that is bad. That is bad from the Cardinals. So, and but and I will not take them lightly still, despite how bad of a performance in that second half it was for them. But still, we just need to take one game at a time and treat them like the best version of that team, and go there and dominate.
Yeah, for sure. Mark, we're not criticizing the team in saying that the red zone offense is off. We're just kind of discussing the topic, kind of like some people will be annoyed. So like we're just trying to give talk from both sides,
Yeah, some people on Twitter were saying it was bad. There was too many field goals, and I'm like, yes and no. But when you're going up against a really good defense, it's like you can't put you can't argue like we still put points on the board, stuff like that. But I mean I was perfectly fine with it. That's the way I'm seeing it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with our red zone offense as of right now. I'd be worried if it was against like Arizona or something like that, or one of the worse teams down the line. Yeah, that might be concerning. But I think overall it's been a great performance. So I'm not slating the team at all.
No. Another point, and Lebarski brings this up, and I thought it just reminded me when he said it. How about Biadasz running 30 yards down the field to be in place to recover the fumble? That shows coaching and the mindset and passion this team has across the board.
Yeah, it's the culture now. The culture is just be the man, pretty much. Just show your worth within this team. And Biadasz he's getting better and better every year. Yeah, like he had obviously he had the weird 2020 season Like, obviously, that was always going to be a pure mystery year. We'd be Addish coming out of college and that, and he's kind of thrown into the wolves, mixing in with Joe Looney and that. But since then, since training under Duke Manyweather, he year after year after year, he's becoming a very valuable asset to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, for sure. Mark is just saying again, Coach McCarthy called a perfect offensive game with the Jets covered from the very beginning, and he saw no need to create situations.
Exactly, and this is what I mean, like playing complementary football. There was no need for us to do anything flashy. There was no need for us to go throw the ball 50 yards deep or anything like that. There was no need to do any. I'm going to use this as an example. If we still had Kellen Moore as our offensive coordinators, no doubt in my mind we would have screwed that game up. No doubt. Because the thing is with Kellen Moore, and now the Chargers fans are complaining about this, and we told them so, is that Kellen Moore likes to be a show-off. He likes to throw in the trick plays just because he thinks he's the bee's knees. But that's not the case. And McCarthy's obviously said, I've had enough of this. I want to run the offense the way I see it, the way it's going to complement my players and how we're going to move the ball forward and put points on the board. And it's clearly shown that in the 2 games that we've played so far.
Yeah. And I'm just going to bring in Kellen Moore's biggest fan right now. Jamie Smith, how are things?
Well, so you made that comment. I would, all right, I'm going to log off now and just listen to you chew Paul's ear off. I feel sorry for him.
I wasn't getting my head chewed off there. No, I was actually backing Mark's comment there.
Yeah.
So. Well, I can say because Mark did make Mark's making some great comments.
Absolutely. Like I was tuning in last week and watching you guys doing post game, and I was loving the comments that Mark was making. You know, it was really good, and that's what we want to see is fans interacting.
Yeah, definitely, Mark. You're bringing in some really great questions, so keep them firing coming, sir. And Lebowski, DJ Dog, everybody that's in the comments. You've got God. Joe from Italy. Yeah, we go.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like that, I think Joe makes another point. And Jamie, if you want to pick this up, you know, in terms of the game on Saturday, it is a new offense. It's going to take a few games to gel.
No, I think you're right. They say it's. I know Mike McCarthy's done the play calling job plenty of times before, but obviously a lot of these players are used to Kellen Moore, and I know we've dug up on it before and said it seemed very rigid and very structured, and what's the word? Very not planned. That's not the right word. But kind of predictable. I say predictable. There you go. Cheers, Brian. But I would. Funny enough, talking to Mike the other day about it, and we touched on it a little bit in the admin group during the game, and Paul touched on it just then, just while I was listening in the lobby. That it seems a bit more exciting. It seems very fluid. Does this offense at the minute? I know we're only 2 games in, but it's definitely a sign of things to come. Like I say, it's like even under Jason Garrett, like you could predict that on 3rd and 10, it was going to probably run the ball to Zeke because Zeke was the main focal point of our offense. Whereas although we've got CeeDee Lamb and he's the outright number 1 wide receiver, like there's a lot of guys that can fill in as a number 2, or like I said, we've got a decent tight end group. So it will I feel less predictable and getting the ball out a lot. And especially as well with the running backs, like I said, I know Pollard's our number 1, and then there's Dowdle, although obviously there's been a lot of good things coming out of him in the offseason. It's still relatively an unknown, and obviously Vaughn's a rookie, so there's a lot of options there to be explosive and catch teams out because they don't really know what these guys can do.
So Joe's definitely bringing the fire, and he's insulting you, Jamie. He's saying Kellen Moore is 0-2. Couldn't happen to a better person.
We're going to have words off of me and you, Brian. We've had a few words since I finished work today, so I think he's all of a sudden, Paul. I think he's got an issue with me as Brian. I think we're gonna take this outside and settle it with a game of rock scissors and paper.
Can I add something in regards to obviously with this game and stuff like that? Compared to like the gym, what was the one thing that we said that had to improve going into this game? Well, we all agreed on this actually last week. It was using our tight ends.
Yeah.
You know, funny you should mention that, Paul. Do you know the worst thing about it is I missed the first touchdown, and then I was like, I bet it'll be Pollard. And then when I saw that it was our boy Jake Ferguson, I was like, no. I was like, I'm good. Sorry, jumping on there, by the way.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like Ferguson got the touchdown, and our second round draft pick, Luke Shoemaker, got the got his first touchdown for his NFL career as well. So it was a good day for the tight ends, even though in terms of yardage and stuff like that, but they were key targets when it comes to putting points on the board. So, I mean, just looking over the Dallas wide receiving stats here, Lamb got 143, Pollard got 37 yards passing, Tolbert, who I thought did a really great game, even though he only got 3 receptions, but he made his presence known for 18 yards. Rico Dowdle got 17 for 1 reception. Bruce Vaughn got 16, Jake Ferguson 3 targets for 11, Turpin 1 target for 9 yards, Gallup 1 target for 3 yards, Luke Shoemaker 1 target, 1 touchdown, 1 yard.
Do you know what? And don't laugh at me for saying this, but do you know what the most surprising stat out of that is? Even though he's wide receiver 1, that CeeDee Lamb got over 140 yards just for the fact that there was all this thing before the game, when him and Sauce Gardner, and I thought I didn't think he would have got that many yards, and so it just shows that doubt him, write him off at your peril kind of thing, in it. Whereas,
that's the thing though, Jamie. Like Lamb and Sauce Gardner were basically paired up for the majority of that game, and Lamb made easy work on him. Like, don't get me wrong, there was the whole, there was almost an interception by Sauce Gardner, but and a lot of people went to jump on that and say, especially Eagles fans out there, that was their main argument, pretty much saying, but did you not see that almost for an interception? The fact is, it wasn't an interception, so just shut up.
Is that like their almost Super Bowls that they've won?
Yeah, pretty much so. Honestly, it's becoming. I've actually starting to really ignore any feedback from other teams now, because all they seem to do is they talk more about us rather than their own team right now, and more particularly so is the Eagles fans. So screw them all.
I think as well. I'm just going to touch on one kind of the tweet you put out the other night, Paul, about Dak's stats. Now, if any other quarterback would have started the season the way Dak has, that's all we'd hear on all these NFL programs. And because he's obviously the Cowboys quarterback, it's like, well, we're not going to talk about him. And I'm like,
that's exactly it, Jamie. Like, that's the thing, though. Like, because Dak is the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, there's going to be media scrutiny regardless. Tony Romo had it when he was playing throughout his whole career, saying Romo was not that great, but since he retired, it's like, he's one of the best quarterbacks to never win it. I was like, how, like, what's the word? Not ironic. What's the word? Basically, not two-faced, but you know what I mean? It's like you say one thing, but you say the other.
Double talk.
What?
Double talk.
Yeah. So, and no doubt, if that was playing for any other team in the NFL, everyone would be like, Dak is easily in the top 3 or top 5. Easily. Like, I'm it's like, and you've got idiots out there like the Sean McCoy and Bart Scott. Like, do you know? And that's another funny thing. Did you see Bart Scott's take saying that the Jets are going to score over 200 yards or rushing yards against Dallas? Well, someday looks like a bloody idiot on national television. Let me tell you.
So, if we move things along, just in terms of say the injury updates and the latest news, with a few O-line niggles, Chuma Doga and Zach Martin kind of came out in the second half. I don't think there's anything seriously wrong with either of them. Zach looked fine. He was walking around fine. I think Adoga was more precautionary than anything.
Yeah. And again, like I mentioned, when TJ Bass came in, he did a stellar job as well, filling in for Adoga. So, but I was potentially worried about Zach Martin, how he kind of went down and how players kind of like trampled over him type of thing. I was kind of concerned about that. So, but it seemed to be it's just basically just one of those impact hits on you when you are down on the ground, and it just seems to wear off as the game progressed. So I'm not particularly worried. So as long as he's there for next week and the season and the game after and the game after, I'm happy. So
yeah. Jamie, we heard non-stop during the commentary of the game, Micah Parsons. And what was it? The game changer. I think game wrecker is far more appropriate for the man. Discuss.
I think we're running out of words to say of how good Micah Parsons is in it. I seen a stat the other day, which actually shocked me, that last year he didn't get one first place vote for defensive MVP, which I was like, wow. And again, we can say, yeah, it's 2 games in, but my God, he's playing at MVP level already. Like, I know there's the Bosses of the world and the Myles Garrett's of the world, but my God, is he actually any better defensive player in the NFL than Micah Parsons?
According to JJ Watt, his brother is, but I just want to know what Kool-Aid he's drinking, if that's the case. Yeah. But because other than the fumble recovery touchdown that TJ Watt did, what she didn't actually cause any disruption for, what else has TJ Watt done so far in those 2 games? Nothing. What has Micah Parsons done so far in the season? He's strip sacked. He's actually went for the end zone. He's going to run into he's sacked. He's tackles for loss. He's went from the outside. He's actually went inside against the guards, which was another thing that Bart Scott mentioned, saying it's like, oh yeah, you will never see Micah Parsons move to the inside. Just get a guard in there and force him backwards. Well, that happened. And look what did just happen is that Micah Parsons breezed past him and got to Zach Wilson and threw him about like a sack of potatoes. So there we go. It's like Micah Parsons is the elite right now in the NFL, not just in the NFC, the NFL. And not just defensive MVP. I'm talking about overall MVP right now, because that's all we seem to be like. Not just us, but this is what our teams are starting to talk about: is how good is Micah Parsons right now? How do you stop a guy like this right now? So, right now, Micah Parsons is as of right now, is MVP of the league. No quarterback, Micah Parsons.
It's even crazy to think that if you look back at his college career, he's actually, at the minute for the guys, he's not even playing his natural position. He was a linebacker for Penn State, and he's playing defensive end. But I think one of the things that really stood out to me during the game, and I don't mean on the field, was during the commentary, and it just shows you the mindset he has. He's still a young man, still effectively learning his trade, and he's not settling. Like, he's been doing all sorts in the off-season, boxing, etc. And I think they're saying he's already planned this off-season coming up to do jiu-jitsu. It's like he's doing everything to improve every part of his game, but also his footwork, his movement, and it's like the sky's the limit. And my gosh, I honestly, I know we've badged on about it. I seriously, out of all the players, I can't wait to see him play when we go to Texas in a few months.
He's much better live in person, I can assure you, mate. I can guarantee that. Yeah. Here's the thing, though, like, with this extra change down, like the boxing, which I think is a great idea, it makes you work on how offensive lineman hand placements are going to be, how to avoid those hands. Like, It's how to get and here's the thing though, when you're seeing that transpire onto the field, it makes it look so effortlessly. Like it made it look so easy. Yeah. So I mean, I'm just looking at stats just now, like 4 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, basically, and 4 QB hits. And not just that as well, it's how he's open. And you mentioned it just earlier there, Jamie, is how it was even one of you guys that mentioned it, is how he's managed to expand the board for the rest of the defense. Steph, like Marquise Bell, Van Der Esch, also Digizua, again, proven he is actually improved. And this is, I believe this is his 3rd year now. Fourth year. So this is Osa's 4th year. So he's out there to get that bag as well.
Don't forget the forced fumble and fumble recovery and his contribution towards that interception to Jerron Curse as well.
It's relentless, isn't it? Like, look at there was the play where he burst through, and I can't remember who the defensive end was. I don't know if it was Beckton. I could be wrong. And he literally, the only way they could stop him was to pretty much horse collar him. And even though they did that, Wilson moved out of the pocket to scramble, and he still chased him.
Yeah, you're right. Was Mackay?
That's what Lions do, Jamie. That's what Lions do. I will say though, Brian, I do need to mention this though. When you mentioned in regards to the interception there, like you helped force it and that. If there's one person that helped force it, I know it was later on during the game, but one person that forced an interception, which was intercepted by Trevon Diggs, was actually Neville Gallimore.
Yeah.
His pressure in that interior was like, where the hell did that come from? It's like he built all that pen frustration for that one snap to get in there and actually force the issue to Zach Wilson to throw the ball to Trevon Diggs. I was just like, this is what we've been looking for this whole time. From just that one snap, we just witnessed that. Keep doing what you're doing, Neville, and it's just going to really help this defense in the interior.
Yeah. Sorry, just another piece of news that I forgot to mention earlier today. Ronald Jones, his suspension finished, but I believe he was also cut.
Yes, he was cut. Yes, that has been reported, and I'm not sure how true this is. I think Tony Romo is now being nominated for the Hall of Fame now.
Yeah. There's about 6 or 7 Cowboys in there that's in there. I know Nate Newton's one of the names that's on there as well.
Oh, Nate has to be one of them. Nate has to be one of them.
Very good. Very good. I'm just, Paul, I'm going to call this one up here for you. Just Lebarski has brought it up. How about that first play on defense? Genius level coaching staff.
I can't, to be perfectly honest, I can barely remember the first play because I was at Topgolf at the time. So me and Lauren were at NFL Scotland massive meetup, and let's just say I got booed a lot because I ended up stealing all the prizes at that game. I won a football helmet, a wee snack helmet thing, and also £100 bar tab and 2 hours of free Topgolf. So it was a win-win for me. But when I won that top prize, the amount of booze I got was ridiculous. So unfortunately, I didn't think I saw the first defensive play well because I was basically must have been hitting the ball at the time. But if Lauren was here, he would definitely seen it.
Yeah.
I just pictured Shooter McGavin from the Adam Sandler film when you sent us the picture of you on the driving range thing.
And there was a good turnout of Cowboys fans. I think there was about 6 of us there. So we met some new friends. They've now part of the Facebook group. They didn't even know there was a Facebook group to start off with. So we started getting them as all followed in and just keep up to date on like for any meetups and stuff like that. So which is great. So it's all good.
As always, the comments came in there, and Lebarski and DJ Dog picked it up for me. So the first play on defense, the ball was handed off to Breece Hall, and Tank absolutely smashed him for a 4-yard loss on a run play.
Oh, that was the first play. Yes, I did see that. I did see that. Yes, I did. Yeah. Sorry. I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did see that. That wow. That's what I'm going to say. That one is wow.
Like that was a tone setter. It was just like, you are not going to run the ball on us tonight.
Yeah, this whole talk about Bryce Hall and all that type of stuff. Don't get me wrong, the kid's talented, but correct me if don't correct, but give me your guys' thoughts on this. Do you know if Bryce Hall just looked? He was in fear for his life in that game sometimes.
I think anybody's going to be against this defensive line, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's going to be the only one who's going to be worried about facing this defensive line.
Well, James Conner's next, so
yeah, I think James Conner is a better back, and he's been a consistent back his whole time in the NFL. But I wouldn't be a fan of facing it. But look, we're nearly half an hour into the show, and we'll move along onto the offensive side of the ball. One name we haven't mentioned in the first half hour of this commentary, Dak Prescott went 13 for 13 on his first 13 throws.
That'll shut up all the critics.
Jamie, as a fan of Joe Burrow, discuss your quarterback's play.
Who's not a fan of Joe Burrow? Come on, he's a decent guy, but no, come on, that first couple of drives with those stats, you can't say anything bad about him, can you? That's what you want from your quarterback. You want him to be efficient. You want him to make big plays, but also protect the ball, and that's exactly what he did. And like you say, Paul touched on it a bit earlier on, but like you say, he went 13 for 13, but it wouldn't surprise me if all the haters looked the first thing they actually picked up was the first incompletion. Because that's just how this team's looked upon from the outside, innit? It's let's find everything negative, and it's that same old thing of they talk about us because they want to be us. But yeah, Dak really impressed me. Could you maybe argue that this was one of his best games for the Cowboys? Just like I say, he was very smart. Never tried, or from what I can remember anyway, didn't seem to try and force the ball. Sometimes we've seen him try to force it. It was, like I say, he was being very smart with the ball, and that's what you want from your QB. And you know what I mean? I've bagged him in the past and said sometimes he's not been good enough, but my opinion is definitely changing on him. And I think I touched on it with Mike the other day when we were talking on his dinner break, that I think we're probably going to start seeing the best of that. I mean, I think his rookie year was sensational, but I think we're going to see him even better just for the fact that now we seem to have a head coach. Thankfully, he's taking over the play calling, but he's going to tailor to what suits Dak. And you're paying Dak, what are we paying? Is it 40 million off the top of my head? I can't remember.
It's less than that now.
Is it less than that now? Is it? Oh, yeah. So what is it? In the 30 to 40 region, are we? And if you're going to pay a quarterback that much, why are you feeding players in there that you probably know he's maybe not comfortable with? And giving players that's going to open the game up, and you're going to bring out the best of Dak. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this season progresses, because for the first two games, he's really, really impressed me. You could probably say, has he been the best quarterback in the league so far? I know he's only 2 games in, but would you really, on the first 2 weeks showing, would you really want another quarterback under centre?
Well, that's the thing.
Potentially.
Well, that's the final, Jimmy. What other quarterback could you really mention that is put like a big highlight reel so far in 2 weeks? I can't really think of anybody right now. Like, don't get me wrong, like Dak hasn't been a highlight reel, but what he's playing is he's playing simple football. Like the coaching are giving him a simple task how to play. Like if option 1 is not available, go to option 2. If option 2 is not available, go to option 3. And it's complementary football. It's keeping it nice and simple, right? And also we can see that with Dak, he feels a lot more relaxed in the pocket now, right? And it's clearly shown that whether it's handing it off to the running backs or going to the passing game, it seems to be and it seems to be working so far. So long lay that may continue. Like, I don't get me wrong, it's great seeing these big massive plays when you're under pressure. Yeah, that's true and stuff like that. But at any time, we've not had to force to play these big plays. We're not being under pressure at all. So there's no need to be over the top. So credit to Mike McCarthy for doing that, and also credit for Dak Prescott for keeping the, like I mentioned at the start of the show, is keeping the ball moving forward, just keeping it nice and simple, just keep moving the chains up to the end zone.
Do you know one of the things I loved? I don't know if anybody caught it. There was an interview about it, and I'm sure they were on about kind of obviously his efficiency with no interceptions, etc. And they were talking about how he last year he threw quite a bit, but then like he like kind of did something that you don't really see from Dak, because he not that he wasn't professional, because he always is, but like you say, like he'll sometimes sit on the fence, won't he, in his things, and he won't give too much away. But then he was like, well, what about the previous year? What about the previous year? You're not talking about those where we're efficient with the ball, but you're talking about the season where I had the highest picks, and it's like, like you secretly sit there going, go on, Dak, go on, lad.
See, again, this kind of goes back to, because it's Dak Prescott, it's the Dallas Cowboys. We're not seeing other quarterbacks get as scrutinized compared to Dak. Wasn't Joe Burrow one of the interception machines last year? Or I'm trying to think who else was an interception.
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen, there you go. Did he get that scrutiny? No. He actually got more interceptions than Dak last year. And so where's his scrutiny? Where's his scrutiny right now compared to Dak? Like, Josh Allen's supposed to be one of the top elite quarterbacks right now, but he's not playing like it.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking for a fair spread of criticism right now. That's it. That is my jet when it comes to the mainstream media and the journalists out there. It just seems to be they use Dallas as a stepping stone just to get clicks and views and whatever. I'm sick of it. I really am. It's like, if you want to be a proper journalist, be fair and equal. Yeah.
So you've kind of both touched on a point I wanted to kind of make here around Dak and the way the game is going under Mike McCarthy's leadership. And a few comments have come in here from Lebarski in terms of, love the weird play where the whole team just slid left and he hit Lamb on a short pass. DJ Dog saying, notice a new wrinkle on offense, threw a screen pass to Dowd with Lupke blocking ahead of him.
Lupke.
And I think one thing all of us wanted was that Dak wasn't having to throw for 400 yards a game. We want to see that balance between the running game, the passing game. And I think we saw that pretty much against the Jets. I think it was pretty much maybe 45-55 in terms of pass run rate. But, it was balanced. And you're not relying on Dak to get you out of a game.
No, I agreed. I totally agree with you. Again, it's just Mike McCarthy has finally found a way how to get the best out of Dak by not making him force these unnecessary passes, which Kellen Moore is clearly showing that right now. He's basically ruined Justin Herbert's reputation right now. We're seeing a lot of flack on him right now. It's like, is Herbert now a top 10 quarterback after the first two games? We're seeing those big question marks. If there's a person to blame, it's your offensive coordinator. He's the one that's calling the plays here.
Yeah.
I mean, and you've not just that, but you franchise tagged your running back and you're paying him what? I think you said about 11 million on the tagging it.
Just shy of 11 million.
Yeah, you're paying your quarterback in the $30 million region. So a lot of the time you're gonna lean on him a lot more than anybody else on the team. But you've also got to remember, there's no way you want to be giving Dak 40, 50, 60 passes a game. You're going to wear him out. So you're paying your starting running back 11 million. Let him pound the ball. I know he's not the Zeke kind of runner, but he can make people miss. He can change the direction of a play in the blink of an eye. So, I mean, use that, like you're saying. And if you're having to then rely on Dak, we saw it loads of times, didn't we? We Romo. If you're throwing 40 times a game, your defense is absolutely gash, and they're just the leaking points for fun. Whereas this can only benefit us because, like you said, the less Dak's having to throw, but also not having to chase games because the defense is playing so well. Is that we're gonna get a top tier level of play off everybody on the team because, like I said, it's so well balanced that it's almost easy at sometimes. Not that it is, but if you get what I mean, that it's you're not having to go out your comfort zone to win games. You're sticking to what you know, and the longer you can keep playing that, it's better, isn't it?
And to be fair, like Lebarski and Mark are kind of backing that point up, Jamie, in terms of saying, unlike Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy's able to see this team as a defense first and he plays to that strength. And then Mark is saying McCarthy is a great offensive mind with a progressive game plan based on how the game plays out. I mean, I'd have a slightly different take from Lebarski on it's a defense first. I think our offense and defense play complementary football. I think there's no difference.
Oh no, I think what he's meaning is like the Jets defense, like he's reading them, like he's reading. And correct us if we're wrong.
Absolutely.
I believe he's trying to say that he's reading their defense first. Like,
yes, I get what you're saying, Paul. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you kind of touched on the next point I wanted to go to, Jamie, there in terms of Tony Pollard. I mean, his statistics were he carried the ball 25 times on Sunday. He also had 7 catches out of the backfield as well. You know, I mean, that's pretty much bell cow work for someone. And I mean, I've always said I don't think he's a bell cow. I still wouldn't maintain he is because I think the more explosive plays came when Deuce Vaughn was in, when Rico Dowdle was in. But is that any different to last season where Zeke was the pounder and Pollard was making all the highlight reel of plays?
It kind of feels like the exact same scenario from last year, if I'm being honest. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still do miss Zeke for the contribution he's did to that, but obviously the coaches see differently, and it's clearly shown that like Pollard has been playing like an RB1 right now. So, and the other running backs we do have in place, when Dowdle and Vaughn have been very complimentary. And they're giving Dak more options as well. So, but yeah.
And Jamie, I'm just going to throw this one to you from DJ Dog. He says there's no reason to force the pass downfield in once the score was 26-10 and McCarthy didn't need to do it. Complimentary. I mean, I think that sums it up.
Yeah.
I think, perfectly. And I know we kind of touched on it a little bit in the admin group where we're all chatting throughout the game. In terms of the red zone efficiency, now, if that was a game where the Cowboys were losing, it's like I think what was it the first? I think we did the first 5 red zone trips, 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals.
Yeah.
Now, if that's a playoff game, you're looking at it and going, that needs to be better. That needs to be either the other way around, the 3 for 2, or it needs to be 4 to 1 for touchdowns. But it's the start of the season. The game was essentially over. Even, you know what I mean? But it's don't risk anybody. Take the points because the Jets were never going to get back into the game. No disrespect to them, they just weren't. It was just more of a matter of when the Cowboys were going to take the game by the scruff of the neck and go and blow it out, essentially. But it's not going to be like that every week. But it's definitely nice to see it. I think the only thing I would have liked to have seen was probably taken the starters out just because the game was over. But I also see the point of keeping them in because they essentially didn't play any pre-season games. So the game time is good. But when you get to them kind of games, you just think, right, it's over. Just the last thing we need is an injury. Like I say, then we get the scare with Zach Martin towards the end of the game, and it's like, no, please don't do it to us.
And kind of as we touched on, again, it's a new system. They're showing a different wrinkle. You don't want to open up the whole playbook in the first 2 weeks of the season. But Paul, I'm going to come back to this comment because I could see your reaction to it in terms of Tony Pollard. Navarski said, I love Pollard's game. That's a Texas Coast back right there. The catches weren't huge burners, but they were effective. And he sums it up perfectly here. This was a game of death by a thousand.
That bit there is death by a thousand cuts is what really sunk in. I was like, ooh. Yeah. I was like, it was like a slow dissection of breaking a team down. And that, again, it goes back to the word we've been using, is what the comments have been using, is complementary football.
Yeah.
Can I just add one thing? It was one of the highlights of the night for me. I say just because they're all playing with a swag at the minute, and like it's even coming off to the coaches, and they actually zoomed in on it and they had a bit of a comment about it, didn't they? Mike McCarthy, like you'll see coaches call plays and they'll have the play sheet over the mouth so they can't see it, and he's just walking around with a swag going, I don't care if you want to lip read out. I'm going to call this play, and it's like you try a bit and see if you've got someone that can lip read because you're not going to stop us. And I was like, this is what we've been missing, and don't want to blow the trumpet like I said because it's only 2 games in, but
yeah,
like you say, everyone's touched on it in the comments, everyone's touched it in the Facebook group and the Twitter pages. There's a different swag to this Cowboys this season, and apparently, like I don't know if Paul mentioned it. Apparently, the comments coming out of training camp, it apparently just feels different around the whole organisation off the field as well. So there's something's finally clicking into place.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to throw out some little stat lines here, like for the first 2 weeks, right? So the Cowboys are currently number 1 overall in terms of points. Oh, that's the wrong sound. Used, and that's on repeat. Oh god, I'm pure making a mock of it. In the top 10 in terms of rushing, they're number 1 in sacks, they're number 1 in turnovers, and what was the last one? Number 1 in yards allowed.
There you go.
That was what I was meant to do. Every point was supposed to be a boom, but I screwed up.
And before we jump on to the defense, I'm just going to bring up Mark's point here because it does kind of feeds into the point you were both making. He says, some people say that, I'm assuming he means Cavante Turpin here and Deuce Vaughn are used for so-called gadget plays, but the coach has a specific time when they're called upon to contribute. It's everybody's contributing. Like, I mean, there was 5 or 6 different players were running, the ball was spread about. It wasn't like, obviously CeeDee Lamb obviously had 13 catches, 143 yards. But apart from that, I don't think anyone had more than 20 yards, but it was just distributed out. Everyone was getting touches.
Jimmy?
No, so I will let you go. Both being gentlemen there, Paul. But yeah.
Sorry, I was actually responding to something else there. Sorry.
But no, yeah, that's what you want. Like you say, you pay him. Well, CeeDee Lamb's clearly the number 1. He's going to get a lot more majority of the touches.
Yeah.
Which it's like that for any team. But then it's what can the guys underneath him do when their number's called, and at the minute that we're getting it, like I said, all of the tight ends were involved. Everybody down the depth chart for the wide receivers were involved. All 3 running backs were involved. That's what you want. Like I say, you take him You're taking a lot of the pressure off every single player to be the main focal point, and like you say, it's harder for teams to defend against because you're not going to know who's going to get the ball. It's just a shame we didn't have this offense, or this style that the coaches are implementing in the 2014 team, because that team, apart from, and then we go on about it, but apart from the bogus call in the Packers game, that team was destined to go to the Super Bowl, and it's a shame that this offensive and defensive scheme isn't being used on them, because it would have been fun to see, but we're gonna get the fruits of it now. So long may it continue, because it doesn't matter to me if Turpin's getting the ball, or if Pollard's getting the ball, or if anybody gets it. I mean, you've got trust in these guys that when their number's called, they're going to make a play.
Yeah. But who was the coach who put us out of both of those years, Jamie?
Can we mute this geezer up in the top corner, because this corner, should have said, pointed the wrong way.
It's the guy that's in the building. It's Mike McCarthy who's now our head coach. Joe just came in with great comments, and I want to get both of your opinions on this. Michael Gallup, is there a concern?
No.
Or do you feel he'll get his touches in the next couple of games?
I think it's just based on the scenario, based on who you're played up against, based on your head-to-head, who's Gallup up against, who's Lamb up against. If it's working for one person, why divert away from it just to help complement someone else, to give them those extra start yards? Again, he is a wide receiver number 2. Don't forget that. Like, he's not supposed to get as many targets as Lamb. So I think I'm not particularly worried. I think the touchdowns or whatever on that, they're all going to come as the season unfolds. Just remember as well, this is his full season coming back from the end. Like, even though he featured last year, but he was never 100%. He got rushed back from injury way too soon just to play football, because we were really down when it comes to our wide receiver course. So for him to have the off season, get himself back up to it, he looked great in camp, etc. In fact, all of our wide receivers look good in training camp. So I am not worried one single bit at all.
Jamie, give us your thoughts there.
Yeah, I'm the same as Paul, and Paul touched on the exact reason why I'm not worried. Like I say, it's his first season where he's fully fit, and like you said, I wonder if the coaching staff are taking into account last season. Obviously, the fact that he had to be rushed back, we had no choice really. And it's like, well, now he's back to full health. Let's lower his workload a little bit, just to compensate for how much they had to put on him too early last season.
Yeah. And I suppose, look, we kind of touched on it when we were talking about Dak. Obviously, Dak's not having to throw the ball down the field as much. And I mean, that really is Michael Gallup's game, is kind of stretch the defense that little bit down the boundaries. So maybe because you're not having to play that game, you're not having to chase that game, you're not having to have Michael Gallup make those types of plays. But look, we're 55 minutes and we haven't really got on to the fun topic yet. So let's flip it over to the defensive side of the ball.
And Aubrey we trust, and Aubrey we trust.
I'll pull that one up. So Lebarski wants to know, is Brandon Aubrey in the Ring of Honor yet?
Well, I would say if things were premature, then I would say that was premature. But for now, Aubrey is ticking all the boxes right now. Like, he's been very accurate. Like, besides the one from the Giants game where he was unexpectedly jumping on because it was literally a special teams effort that caused the field goal, the extra point. So not enough time to warm up. So you could put all that aside, but anything besides that onwards, he's been spot on.
Jamie, what did you make of the 55-yard field goal?
What you want? It's what you want from your kickers, isn't it? Like, they should be pretty up, and they should be automatic from the point after attempt. And I can't remember which analyst from Cowboys.com. I think last season, I could be wrong when I say Mickey Spagnuolo. But they should also be automatic from 35.
Yeah,
pushing 40. Yeah, like I said, he had the missed PAT last week, but like I say, conditions. His first attempt in the NFL, can let him off for that. But he's been on point ever since. Hopefully, we've come to the end of the horror kicker shows that we've had since we let Dan Bailey go, because we've really struggled since then. Yeah. So hopefully, touch wood, he's looking good. Long may it continue.
So, Paul, talk defense.
Talk defense. What do you want me to talk about?
You have the floor, sir.
Well, for the first 2 weeks, we're number one in turnovers. We're number one in sacks. We're number one in yards against. We've given up the least amount of yardage. Our front four have been nothing but pressure. Our linebackers have been covering like absolute ball hawks. Our secondary have been nothing but phenomenal. Diggs, Gilmore, Marquise Bell. I mean, this is just all credit to the one and only Mr. Dan Quinn and his coaching staff. Like, retaining him has been an absolute blessing for us to move forward. And it's just been phenomenal. Also, Digizua and Labasa just brought the comment, also as a dog. He is really coming into his own right now in these first two games as our free tech. Like, don't get me wrong, like, give Mazzy Smith time and Hank, and obviously Hank is like, but they're there to stop people from getting into the A gaps. Like, when it comes to pass protection, like, those guys are designed to get double teams. So don't expect big, massive plays from those guys. Like, if they do get a massive play, then that's an absolute bonus. But the guys in the interior that are supposed to get the plays, the ones supposed to break the mold, is your free techs, your Osas, even like Gallimore and even if you move like Chancey Golston in there as well, all those guys that fit in the free tech position. And we even saw Micah Parsons fit into the free tech position at one point as well. And look what happened there. He absolutely ragdolled the left guard, right guard, and got to Zach Wilson and did his celebrated line dance. So,
Jamie, something I saw on Sunday night was a lot of 5-man fronts. And I think your own Aidan Durday from the UK deserves a lot of credit for the work he's doing. I've seen a lot of people mention the fact that if Dan Quinn does go back to a head coaching position, Aidan Durday is going to be getting a lot of calls for defensive coordinator roles.
Well, I think you're right. He's been flying under the radar for a while, and I know we caught glimpses of it on the Hard Knocks one before, where the team have a lot of respect for him, listen to what he's saying, and implement the techniques and everything that they're giving him. The only thing about this defense is like it feels like kind of the opposite of what we were talking about Dak, in terms of everyone's picking up on the negative things of Dak, but nobody's talking about this defense. And hopefully they're using this to kind of have a bit of a chip on the shoulder, because I'm not saying that they're as good as, but I think was it the 94 Cowboys defense that not one of them got picked to the Pro Bowl, but it was the best defense in the NFL that year.
Yeah.
And this is, I know it's still in the season, but it's nobody's talking about this defense. Like I said, Micah Parsons is heading
Yeah. Just a small note before we continue. A couple of people have brought this up, and our own Lauren has brought it up. Anthony Brown has signed with the 49ers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So that is just one for your calendars. Paul, in terms of, you mentioned it earlier, the pressure that was coming on in the pocket. And that was, as you say, that was your three techs pushing right up on top of Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
You mentioned Gallimore's impact on the interception that Trayvon Diggs had.
Yeah.
Gallimore had more than that. And I mean, just explain to us in terms of what that impact that you have from your 1 and 3 techniques, putting pressure on the pocket. How does that impact the game?
Right, so your free tech is basically the guy that really does kind of, like, obviously with your defensive ends, they're coming from the outside and really to try and close the pocket from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really up to really the free tech to really get into the pocket from the middle. Mm-hmm. So for him to cause pressure to force, like I said, quarterbacks out the pocket, it's very vital if you're running a 4-3 defense. You're not going to get that with a 3-4. The person that's going to cause that disruption in a 3-4 defense like the Giants is your linebackers, and we didn't see any of that. They were getting picked up left, right, and center. So for likes of Osa to really create those instant plays, and like I said, Gallimore creating those pressures to really like close in the peripheral for the quarterback in particular, because they're not going to look side to side for screen passes in this instance. It's going to be forward down the field. So if you're shortening the gap between like the less you can see off the field up ahead, the more you're going to make the quarterback cause a mistake. And that's what Osa and Neville Gallimore did in this game. Like Gallimore in particular, the play that you just mentioned there, but Osa in general throughout the whole game was causing that. It was just, I just can't help just like really emphasize how well our defensive line as a whole are playing right now. So, and I don't want to get way too excited about it because obviously I want to try and keep a level head about it. But yeah, I'm from what I'm seeing so far, we're doing what everyone's supposed to be doing. It's what Bill Belichick always says is do your job, and that's exactly what they're doing.
And Jamie, again, something else I noticed consistently throughout the game was not only were the Cowboys shedding blocks, but they were getting the hands up, they were getting the hands in around Zach Wilson so that he never had time to make a pass.
The hungry, that's what it is. Like you say, it all stems from the coaching staff. Like you say, this coaching staff, they've got a lot of consistency in terms of there's been no real turnover of the staff. They get another year under the same system. There's just obviously I don't know. I don't think you could put your finger on any one thing. Like I say, it's just everything's clicking. There's just this renewed enthusiasm around the whole team, and it's stemming right through everybody. I mean, it's they're taking their opportunities, and whether on the field, they're making sure that they're leaving it all out there. And it's, I said, and I touched on it on your last question, but we finally get a defense that we've been praying for, that can get the offense out of a pickle, but also if it has a bad game, we know they can go on there and one play it'll probably change the course of a game.
Yeah. Just something Lebarski has touched on here, and like I'm not trying to get too far ahead, obviously, with the pre-game show coming up, but when Donovan Wilson comes back, we could have 4 safeties on the field at times. Dan Quinn is a wizard. I mean, Dan Quinn's defensive system allows his safeties to drop into the box and play as linebackers at times. So I think we saw it over the weekend. There were times where there was only one linebacker on the field, and they were playing that sort of stacked defense of 5, 3, and 3. Do you think we'll see more of that over the course of the season?
Potentially. I mean, I think the best way to describe this defense is a mixture of 4-3 and hybrid. Mm-hmm. Like I would say it's a more of a hybrid defense than a 4-3 sometimes, because you do get your 5-stack defensive linemen with the 3 safeties becoming linebackers, etc., and whatever and that. But yeah, I'm just very impressed in general, just how Dan Quinn this is now his 3rd season now.
3rd season, yeah.
Yeah, and we just seem to be getting better and better under Dan Quinn. And and there's a reason why we gave him that money to stay, and he wanted to stay. He feels as though he's got unvision, and he wants to win us a Super Bowl. End of the day,
mate. Dan Quinn could put Neville Gallimore at safety, and he would make it work. That's how much of a wizard he is. He just literally. I know I'm exaggerating, but you get what I mean, don't you? Like you say, he's just that good that it could make something that's not the norm in this defense, and it wouldn't look out of place.
Basically, what you're trying to say, Jim, is you can put a piece of poo into it and turn it into gold.
Yeah, but probably not as defined as that. Like, I'm not saying. Yeah, like you said, I'm not saying the crap. You get what I mean, don't you? Like he could put us free at linebacker and make it work. You know what I mean? It's just that's how good he and his coaching staff are.
Well, I'm going to be realistic. There's no way I can keep up with those boys. No chance. No
man,
way.
Come on. If you pull that star on your arm, man, you'd be.
Dude, like I'm basically one pancake away from being disabled on a wheelchair. Put it that way.
I'm one pancake away from being full.
Oh, it's getting to that time of the night where we're knocking out the cliches and dad jokes.
And Jamie's disappeared.
The Yorkshire internet has backed it in.
The Leeds internet connection has struck again.
Joe was saying Dan Quinn couldn't make Calvin Joseph work.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a very fair point. Do we really know if Kelvin Joseph was really a player that Dan Quinn actually wanted, or was that more of a best player available type of thing from like Will McClay? Like, and that's the final. Like Will McClay and that, they hardly missed, but I think they didn't anticipate that Kelvin Joseph would have fell down as bad as he came to the Cowboys. Like, there was a lot of promise about Kelvin Joseph, and we were kind of excited about it when we did draft him. Like, there was parts of his game that we did like about, but he just never exceeded those expectations, and because he was a 2nd-round draft pick, he just didn't. And I don't think with him being like a pure corner, pretty much, and how Dan Quinn's system works with having that with Diggs and Gilmore, etc., and how we use our safeties and that to become like I didn't think there was actually going to be a spot for him in even rotation that way, and I don't think he actually adjusted. I think he was just purely wanting to play as a corner. Really, he was not adapting well to sudden dropping down to maybe like linebacker or anything like that, or switch over to a safety role or whatever. And I don't think he had that flexibility about him, and that's one thing that unfortunately not all draft picks do. Work out, and again, it kind of goes back to my old saying: the draft pick is a lottery.
100%.
You know that, and not just kind of draft picks, like I say. It's just, and we can go back a few years ago, and I mean, it was cracking in Kansas City and an all round top guy. But when we brought Brandon Carr and give him all that money, it just Dallas just wasn't the right fit. Like we saw flashes of him, and it just, like you say, just every now and again, players sadly slip through the cracks and don't fit. Like you said, and when you talk about draft picks, probably the one that's closest to him lately is obviously Mo Claiborne. He came out of college with all this hype, and he just didn't fit. He just didn't fit well in Dallas. It's just one of them things, isn't it? You're always going to get the odd one, but I think if you looked over Dan Quinn's coaching history, you've probably got a lot more hits than misses.
Yeah. Just bringing up Lebarski's comment here, coming from someone who wasn't a fan of the pick, man, I wish so bad we were seeing Overshown in this defense.
Hell yeah.
There we go. But gentlemen, look, it's nearly an hour and 15 minutes, so I'm sure we need to start wrapping up. Is there anything else from Sunday's game you would like to discuss?
I think we're all good, actually.
Yeah.
Jamie, I'll throw it to you.
I don't think there's anything else to touch on the game. The Cowboys got you could call it essentially a blowout win. 2-0. Cowboys run New York.
Absolutely.
We can always go for the trifecta later on in the season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. But as we say, let's get out of here. Paul, I'm going to get you to bring up the old Cowboys experience and give Barry and the team a shout out.
Yes, so guys, if you're planning going to a Dallas Cowboys game this year, be sure to go and check out cowboysexperience.com for game tickets, stadium tours, meet and greets, and much, much more. Also, if you decide to go with Cowboys Experience, be sure to use our promo code UK Cowboys, because guys, what do we get?
Free stuff.
Yes,
chocolate pudding.
Free stuff.
Chocolate pudding. Chocolate pudding. That's what we get. Jamie, talk about the biggest event of the year.
So we're pretty much 2 months away. The UK Cowboys 2023 group trip to see the Cowboys take on one of those crappy
Washington
teams from the NFC East on Thanksgiving. There's still plenty of places left on if people want to join. There's Paul and Mike have been working their butts off to make sure it's a memorable one. There's all sorts planned, meetups, meet and greets, tours of the stadium, the Star, decent seats in the stadium, tailgating, you name it. It's every stone has been unturned. If you want to join, there's still time. Hit us up on the socials or hit up our sponsors, Cowboys Experience, for more info.
And what about the fact people might get to have a beer with us?
That's always a bonus. Yeah,
but that's just a given anywhere, isn't it? So it's like we could be stood at a bus stop and we'd have a drink with any other Cowboys fan.
Yeah, guys, just look in the private chat there for a minute, and I'll give the final shout out. If I can find it, no, I can't. But but obviously, look, folks, make sure and check out our fellow content creators. Make sure and check out Cowboys Media. Make sure and check out the likes of Paul and Mike, who are contributing over on Blogging the Boys as well. Everyone is putting out plenty of content. You will not be disappointed in anything you see there. Yeah, just
Oh,
yeah,
no,
just
yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, obviously, look, so we have gotten through most of this broadcast, but of course, we would like to pass on our condolences as a group to our good friends over at the UK Patriots. There was a very unfortunate incident which happened at their game on Sunday night. It's hard to comment on it, and it's hard to comment on what has been shown on social media around that incident. But guys, if you is there anything you'd like to say on that?
See, yeah, it's just our condolences to the fan and the fan's family and friends. Really, it's just it's a shame.
Yeah, until you mentioned it in the chat bit there, I didn't even know what had happened. But it's sad, like you say. Thoughts and prayers with the fan base and the fan and the fans, family and friends. It's awful.
Yeah. Well, look, on a brighter note, Thursday night here at 9:00 in the UK and Ireland, Paul, Mike, and the team will be back to preview the Cardinals game. Anything else we're missing out on, gents, or can we wrap it up?
I think we're all good, man.
All right. It is a good night from me. I'll pass it off to these fine gentlemen.
As always, Dallas forever, Philly forever.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe. Make sure you tune in with Mike and Paul and the guys Thursday. Bring on Sunday. Go Cowboys.
Let's go.
Good night.